Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Susan Lopresti Wellness, Mind, Body, and Soul, the podcast where we explore the highs, the lows, and everything in between when it comes to a woman's life, her health, and all aspects of navigating the midlife landscape. I'm your host, Susan Lopresti, and today I'm very excited about my guest. I have Andrieux with me, and Angela is a passionate fine art photographer and a dedicated photography coach with over 15 years of experience in the photography industry. Renowned for her ability to demystify complex and often confusing technology, Angela excels in helping others organize, edit, and protect their photos. As a photography coach, Angela empowers individuals to harness the technology to stay organized, safeguard their media libraries, and express their unique style through creative photo editing. Her expertise extends beyond coaching to include group presentations, workshops, and detailed how-to documentation for several photography software companies. Additionally, Angela has hosted hundreds of live and pre-recorded video tutorials on a variety of creative topics. She's based in Southern California. Angela is an avid explorer, always ready to capture the world through her lens. She loves adventures, riding her e-bike, and spending quality time with her husband and her two playful cats and wonderful family. Now, I will tell you, full disclosure, when I first met Angela, I was a little apprehensive about having her as a guest on my podcast because, as you know, most of my episodes are talking about ways of healing, staying healthy, reclaiming health, rejuvenation. And in the beginning, I really didn't see the connection between photos and midlife women and healing. But as we began to talk, she started to give me some information as far as how it's helpful to declutter and weed out a lot of duplicate photos when you have hard copy photos. And I know I have them scattered all over my house, so I know exactly what she's talking about with that. And just organizing and getting everything together and decluttering your home and putting these photos out digitally where you can then go ahead and share with your family and friends and reminisce. And I was thinking about connection and how I always talk about how important it is for us as mature women to maintain connection with others, with like-minded people, because that helps us to stay young and feel a sense of belonging. And it's just a wonderful avenue. So with all of this, what I decided is that Angela is actually an excellent guest for my podcast because I love talking about decluttering. She also told me about the connection to be made between organizing photos and fostering relationships. She also talked about virtual reunions where you come together, maybe all of your family goes on a Zoom and you are sharing photos, and it's just a wonderful way of getting together, reliving beautiful moments that you shared together. And so I thought it was great. And the other interesting thing is her company, Myleo Photos, makes it easy to organize and also access these memories, helping people share them effortlessly through these virtual gatherings, making those moments more meaningful and less stressful because you're sharing photos of great memories, celebrating different events. And so without further ado, let's welcome Angela Andrieux. Angela, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. And I think we've stumbled into a really helpful and unique aspect of digital detox and how that can make your life better and healthier and reduce the overwhelm that we all have in our lives.
Yes, yes, I agree. So how does photo organizing with Mylio photos contribute to an overall mental wellness and a sense of digital balance? Talk about that for a moment.
Sure. So we live in this world where we accumulate thousands and thousands of images across multiple devices. So just as physical organization can help calm the chaos, so does doing organization in the digital realm. So by having a sense of order in your photo library, it can reduce stress, it can improve mindfulness and focus. And Mylio Photo is an amazing application for that because it helps you gather all of your pictures into one central library that you can then organize, declutter, get rid of duplicates, and then add meaningful information to those pictures so important details aren't lost and can be preserved for generations. So one of the things that's really fun to do in Mylio Photos is face tagging. To me, it's almost like a game because what it does is it goes through and it scans your pictures for recognizable faces. It uses AI to do that. And that's all locally done privately on your computer. So it's not going out into the cloud. It's not getting spun up to give you ads or anything like that. So it's all local and private. And it finds all of the recognizable faces inside the pictures in your library and it pulls them up in this whole untagged collection, which you can then go into and use the batch face tagging tool to group together all of the similar faces. And you
Mhm.
can start tagging those people. And for me, it's kind of a game to get down to like less than 100 faces that I need to tag in my library. I've worked on some family history projects for my own family, and I still have quite a few that are older pictures that I don't recognize who's in them. Like I'd say, I know it's one of my aunts or possibly my mom, but I don't know which one it is because they're little.
Yeah,
Those are the things to figure out, but it's almost like a game. And it's so rewarding to gather those details and get those preserved because once one generation is gone, we're going to look back and we're not going to know who's in those pictures. So getting those memories and that information preserved in a format that can span time is so important.
right, right. That's a very good point. So with the overwhelming amount of digital photos, because you talked about duplicates, and I'll take the same picture of the same thing 5 times just to see which one is going to come out better. But with the amount of digital photos that most people have today, what are some tips for calming the digital chaos that takes place with so many photos?
So my recommendation for most people is to start small. When you look at your entire collection of images, it's very overwhelming to get into, much like opening up a closet that's highly disorganized and
Yeah,
closing it again because you're like, I just can't deal with that today. But if
right,
you take out one small box of things and go, I'm going to sort through this little section and I'm going to pick up this one thing and I'm going to deal with it, that is so much more manageable and we can slowly chip away at these bigger projects. And digital organization is very much the same. So start small, pick a specific folder or a specific date and start trying to go through those. So you mentioned taking a bunch of pictures of the same thing that are all very similar and trying to find that best shot. One of the cool things Mylio Photos has is a tool called Photo Declutter. And it's meant exactly for those burst mode images. So like when you're taking a picture of your kid out on the soccer field as they're running down the field and you get 20 shots that are nearly the same, you probably only need like one, maybe two or three of them. Like maybe there's a couple that have great expressions, maybe one the feet are off the ground. And those are the ones you want to keep. The rest are blurry, they're not very good, the gestures aren't great. And this groups them all together so you can compare them and be like, okay, those are the three to keep, the rest of these can go away. And you just deal with them in these small little chunks. And before you know it, you're working through and making that entire collection more enjoyable to look through and easier to find the things that are important.
right, great. So can you share some examples of how organizing your photos can improve mindfulness? Because you mentioned that when we first met, and bringing clarity both emotionally and mentally. Like how does that happen?
Well, it forces you to slow down and really reflect on those memories you captured. So it's all about mindfulness and reconnecting with your past and reflecting on the present. So it's a great way to practice both memory preservation and that gives mental clarity. I find that going back through my pictures is a great way to kind of dig into gratitude because life can be difficult and when we take pictures, typically we're taking pictures of kind of the high points in life, right? So you go back through your pictures and you're able to relive those moments that were hopefully some of the most joyous in your life. And that can really center you and ground you and bring a lot of mental clarity and happiness.
Yes, I could totally see that. I could see that. In what ways can photo organizing help strengthen relationships, especially during virtual family reunions or gatherings, which I really think is great that to get on to a Zoom virtually, let's say twice a year. Especially, I know my family, I have a very big family and we're spread out all over the United States. So this seems like a fun thing to do. So what are some
Well,
examples with that?
yeah, so I mean, photos tell stories, right? So they're the great storytellers, and by getting our family or friends, whatever group of pictures you're looking at, the group of people who are in them or are related to them, you can bond deeply and reminisce together about those stories, and it fosters deeper connections. And by doing it virtually, if you pull them up on your computer, you have them organized and easy to access. Hop on a Zoom with the people that are important to you. Share those pictures. You can share stories. You might even learn things about things that were happening about that time that you were unaware of at that time. And it just builds this bond it just makes it that much more unbreakable.
Right, that's great. So what role does storytelling through photos play in preserving that family legacy? And how can Miley or photos help make that process a whole lot easier?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, as we storytell through photos, that's how people pass down history, their values, their personal narratives. And that's something people have been doing for many, many generations before us, is that storytelling. And our photos help tell those stories. So by going through and organizing and tagging images, adding those important details, it ensures that those stories aren't lost. And it's another way to pass on generational knowledge to those that come after us and make sure that those stories and that history are preserved. I look back through some of the pictures that I have in my collection that are scanned photos from like my grandma's family album and even some that are older than that. And being able to kind of get an idea of what my ancestors went through, the lives that they lived, the people that they were, their character, all of that it brings me to where I am today. And it just, it can do a lot of things to help build your story and then pass it on. So you want to make sure things don't get lost in that big old sea of files, because then nobody's going to enjoy them in the future. And those stories kind of just go up into the nothingness.
Right. No, you know what? I have a perfect example of that. One of my cousins shared a photo, a group photo of my grandparents and my aunts and uncles at a very young age. And so we were trying to pinpoint who was who. And there was one man that was at the table that we really had no idea at all who he was. And my mom, luckily, there's still two siblings left, my mom and my uncle. My mom is 89 and my uncle is 91. And so my cousins were saying, ask your mom, maybe she'll remember who that man is. And sure enough, I showed her the photo and she knew exactly who he was. And he was my grandfather's best friend. Now, none of us would have known that if it wasn't for my mom. So I get that putting everyone together and looking at photos and not recognizing someone, and how wonderful it is that someone could say, oh, I know who that person is, and put the whole story together. So that's pretty cool. That's
Yeah,
very
I mean, and that's one thing something like Mylio Photos or other image management tools can really help with, is being able to take those details. So as you're sitting there with your friends and family going over and reminiscing, being able to jot down those memories and be able to have that stick with the photo so that story doesn't get lost.
right.
So you can just say, okay, grandpa's best friend, but then you can also say if you know that person's name, and then you might be able to find other connections too. So it's such a great way to get more details about those times.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and I'll speak for myself with this, but I know that many people, they feel very overwhelmed by the thought of organizing their photos. And I have a big plastic bin under my bed, and I have photos, and I do have them organized by year, but it's so cumbersome. And when you start taking them out, it just, becomes overwhelming. So where do you start, and how can Mylio photos make the process feel more approachable? So I have all of these hard copies of photos. Where do you begin with that?
So when we're talking about our hard copies of photos, there are two different ways you can kind of go to get those digitized and preserved. The first one is going to be to scan them yourself. And that's a very fulfilling project. If you're a creative person, you like doing those kinds of things, it can be a lot of fun. I've done a lot of that myself and I really enjoy it. But there's some people who have maybe a little bit less time on their hands, or maybe that's just not something they like to do. And maybe they would rather invest in having someone else do that. And that can be a better path for those people. Having it outsourced and having somebody else digitize your photos or possibly even old videos, things like that, is actually more affordable than a lot of people think, especially when you compare to needing to buy specific gear and stuff to scan your own photos. And again, you're lucky that you have some things that are already broken down by year and somewhat organized. I would suggest for you, take those, one little chunk at a time and be like, this month I'm going to work on this year. And you're going to go through, and if you're scanning them yourself, you get them all digitized, you go through, you take a look at the backs of the images. If there's any dates or important information there, you make sure that gets translated into the program you're using to organize,
Right.
and just work through it in small little chunks. Now, when it comes to the pictures you have that are already digital, what you want to do is gather everything all into one location. And by that, I mean all of your media. So we've got stuff on cell phones, we've got things on potentially hard drives and computers, and they're all kind of spread out and scattered, possibly even different cloud services. Maybe we save some over here and we save some over there.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that Mylio does really, really well is help you gather all those things into one library. Once you do that, you can then access that same library from all of your different devices. So that way, no matter whether you're on your phone or you're sitting at a coffee house on your tablet, you can access your entire library of photos. And even when you're standing in line at the grocery store, maybe you're waiting in the doctor's office and they're running late, because they usually are, you can sit there and maybe tag a few photos and do a little bit of organization there instead of, doom scrolling. You can get something productive and fulfilling done, as opposed to just whittling away the time doing something unproductive and unfulfilling, and a lot of times kind of contrary to our own mental health.
Right. So Mylio will actually manage photos across multiple devices, is what you're saying.
Yeah, so what it does is it helps you get everything into one place. So the way it kind of works for most people is you're going to basically download all of your things. I would say have an external hard drive that you dedicate, that's where you want your photo library to be stored.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the location that Mylio watches. So Mylio doesn't physically hold your pictures, it points to where they live. And then it creates what we call a peer-to-peer connection that securely connects your devices to talk directly to each other. So that's how things transfer from device to device. A lot of other services put everything in the cloud, and that's how things get to your different devices. Mylio lets you use the cloud as a storage location if that's what you want to do. But for privacy reasons, some people don't want to use the cloud, so we don't make that mandatory. It's an option for you, but you don't have to do it.
Okay.
A
So do
lot
you
of
have
technical stuff
any,
there.
right, right. Do you have any personal stories or experiences where photo organizing has made a meaningful impact on your life and or the lives of others?
Yeah, for sure. So some of the ways that I have used it in my own life is for family celebrations.
Mm-hmm.
So when something comes up, let's say my husband retired from the military almost 2 years ago now. And as I was preparing for this big, big event, I'm reminiscing through all of these different phases we went through in our life, all the different places we've lived, how the military has changed, how we've changed, how our family changed. And I was able to put together very quickly and easily a lot of pictures throughout his life. So first, because I face tagged my husband,
Mm-hmm.
here's all the pictures of my husband. And then I could go through and pick out certain ones that were maybe related to his military or really kind of shown a specific phase in our life. So I was able to put them all together into this really cool slideshow. And then that was ready to be shown at his party. And so that's one way you can use these things. I've also done it for like Mother's Day. I can go through and I can find pictures that are just my mom and I, or me and my mom and my grandma, and put those together and share those with them and just, kind of reminisce, bring back that connection, all those wonderful memories. You can also use it for things like, sadder situations where you have a celebration of life or something like that.
Yeah.
It's My Leo photos is something I wish I had several years ago when my grandmother passed, because we spent hours and hours and hours pulling apart photo albums, making poster boards and all this stuff, which were great. But it would have been so much easier if we'd had a digital solution where we could just go, okay, find all the pictures of grandma. Okay, now we pick the best 50 and we can just project them up on the wall
Yeah.
and there we go. It would have just been one less thing to have to worry about when you're dealing with so much already through a hard time. So
Absolutely.
those are different times that it can really impact your well-being in many, many different ways.
Right. Yes, I totally get that. So, what is the connection between organizing physical spaces for wellness and doing the same for our digital lives, especially with our photos?
So it's just a matter of, calming that chaos that's around us. So we're creating so much. A lot of us have been handed those boxes of pictures from relatives that might be gone, and then we have our own pictures we've taken. Being able to cull that down to something manageable, being able to have it where we can enjoy it and
Hmm.
access it, and then being able to put things together to share with our family, whether it's through those virtual family reunions or, somebody pops into your mind, go, you know what, I'm going to find a picture of them and send it to them of that great time we had when we were in this really cool place.
Right.
It's just a great way to pull everything kind of back together and bring out the best of what we have and what we remember and what we've experienced.
Yeah, that's great. That is great. So, how does reflecting on old photos, like once they're all organized, how does that contribute to emotional well-being and gratitude?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, we tend to take pictures of some of the happiest and best times of our lives. Things that we want to remember are what we capture. And as you're going back through and doing your organization, or maybe you're just, looking for something to scroll through and you happen to be looking through your pictures, it is a great way to foster gratitude and to really realize how blessed your life has been. And it doesn't matter, how much money you've made or who you've known as far as like, big names of anybody. It's the experiences you've had and the connections that you've had. And those are going to be the pictures that are in your library that stand out to you. And by being able to get to those easily and being able to find them when you want them, it just can give you such an immense sense of gratitude.
Mhm.
And just be able to reflect on that and be able to appreciate what you have. And that's what it's really done for me is it helps me a lot when, I'm going through maybe a rough patch with something, being able to go back and go, you know what? Today might be hard, but overall, I'm blessed.
Right. So you're a photography coach.
Mhm.
And I mentioned this to you in our first meeting that I used to go to a scrapbooking
Mhm.
party on a monthly basis. Every first Sunday of the month, we would get together and do our own photos, our own album. But we sat with a group of women in my friend's basement. She used to organize this. And it was fun. And if we were stuck on what we wanted to do with a photo or how we wanted to set it up, she would come over and help us or give us a suggestion. So, what is your role as a coach with this?
So what I've done historically is I work with usually individual photographers, usually somebody who's maybe not as comfortable with technology. Like they have a computer, they have the stuff, but they maybe don't know what to do with it. They've maybe made a mess of their library. What I do is I help them learn how to use what they have. I possibly might help them learn how to use different photo editing software to get creative and make, whatever their vision was for that particular picture, how to get that into their art. I help people make sure that their pictures are backed up and safe and secure, and
Mhm.
walk through these various workflows with them to make sure that they can accomplish what they want to accomplish. And these are typically one-on-one, although I have done some group sessions and I've done presentations for camera clubs and things like that. But mostly what I do is work with people one-on-one to help them get organized and to be able to do what they want to do with their photography. In working with My Leo Photos, it's really very much segued together because with My Leo Photos, it's also about photo organization. But instead of focusing so much on the professional photographer or the serious amateur photographer, I'm working with more individuals and families with their own collections of images. But it's very similar in just calming the chaos, getting things organized, being able to find things when you need them, and make sure they're safe and secure. So that's kind of where those two things meet.
Right, right. Okay, that makes sense. So any final thoughts or anything you want to share, how someone could get in touch with you and learn more about what it is that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at angelaandrew.com. And I'm sure that'll be in the show notes because my last
Yes, it
name
will
has a
be.
unique spelling.
It will
And you
be.
can also learn more about My Leo Photos at myleo.com. It's got an amazing community. It's an incredible application that just fosters so much connection between not only you and your pictures, but being able to get those things out there and share them with the people that are important. So, kind of my last bit of advice that I would love to share is just make sure that the things that are precious to you, that you have a chance to protect them and that you don't lose them. And, by backing them up, getting them organized, the weight that lifts off your shoulders in calming that digital chaos is going to make you so much happier once you can say, yes, I know my photo memories are safe.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thank you, Angela. I appreciate you coming on. I'm sure that this is going to resonate with a lot of my listeners because it definitely is something that's really important. And I also know the importance of decluttering your home to free up the energy and get things flowing and not feel so stagnated and stuck. And I feel like it reflects in a lot of different areas of your life when you are cluttered and just have a lot going on. So organization is definitely a healing aspect, and there's so many different ways of healing, and this is certainly one of them. So I appreciate you coming on and letting my listeners know about your service and what it is that you do. And I will put all of your information in the show notes. So if anyone would like to get in touch with Angela, you'll be able to find all her information in the show notes. So thank you so much for listening. And until the next time, be well, stay happy, and bye for now.